Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Juanita Ingram, and I'm the founder and the chairwoman of the Board of Trustees for Dress for Success Greater London, and we are so excited that you joined us this evening for our empowerment panel for Power of Women and for International Women's Day. We are celebrating 5 years of our affiliate. We opened our affiliate doors on February 10th, 2015, and it's been an amazing journey. And we are 5 years strong and excited that we're still here. This is our 4th year that we've had the Power of Women Awards and the panel event. The first year that we had it, we had the awards and the panel on the same night. And we were at CBI, and it was 10 o'clock at night, and the conversation was still going, and nobody wanted to go home. And so at that point, I made the decision, we will separate those events going forward. But it's an intimate conversation. This year's theme for International Women's Day is Each for Equal. And we're all talking about gender equity, pay equity, and those type of topics. And in case you don't know, I think the majority of you probably do, but in case you don't, Dress for Success is a registered charity, and we help unemployed women get back into the workplace by giving them interview attire and, most importantly, interview training. And so we have an 80% success rate, which means that women that come to us, every woman that comes to us has an upcoming interview. They're usually referred to us. We work with different agencies, job centers, other charities that help women, and they have an upcoming interview. And so we provide not only the attire, but more importantly, the interview training. So if you think about it, no one succeeds in a bubble. And so, if you're going for an interview, you have the girlfriend that you call and say, hey, look over my CV, or you call, I'm going, help me warm up with some questions. Well, imagine if you didn't have that network. Imagine if you didn't have the girlfriend that you can call. We want to be the girlfriend to as many women as we possibly can. And the majority of the women that we serve, it runs the gamut on the demographics. So it could be someone coming out of uni, or a woman that's been made redundant, that's been out of work for a few years. We have a lot of mothers that are going back from maternity leave, and just the lack of confidence of being out of work for a particular period of time weighs on the confidence level that you can have. And so we're here to not only give them the support of going back into the workplace, but also ongoing support. So we have our professional women's group that meets monthly once they do obtain the job. That gives everything from life skills, from financial literacy. In December, we had a makeup session on how to put on makeup properly. We all learned about contouring. It's helpful for me. Shaved off my double chin, winning. So we give the life skills and the support that we need as women going forward. And the conversation and the people that support us, we couldn't do it without that. We have corporates, men and women, that support the work that we do. And so I want to really thank Arnold Porter for being our sponsor for this evening to have this event tonight. Arnold Porter has been a global sponsor of Dress for Success. So Dress for Success is a global organization. We are the London affiliate, but it is a worldwide organization that's present in 155 cities and 30 countries. So I say it's like the McDonald's of charities. Wow. So it's a franchise, and we're the London affiliate. So we're just thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled that you braved the Corona streets out there to be with us tonight in the rain. So we did sell out. I think the coronavirus coupled with the rain was a perfect combo of excuse. Other than a fire on your train line. Train line is a legitimate reason, but I do think that we are in interesting times that we're living in. I lived here for 5 years. As you can hear, I'm not from here. I don't know if you picked that up. But I'm from Tennessee originally, but I lived here for almost 5 years, and that's when I started the affiliate here. But I currently live in Taiwan. So I've had my fill of Corona. This is the most interaction with adults that I've had in a long time. My kids' school was canceled for a month. I'm just happy to be out of the house. So I'm so thrilled that you're here tonight with us and to have this conversation. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Is everyone mic'd, or do they still need to get mic'd? Okay. I could talk forever, so it doesn't bother me. I'm a lawyer by trade, so talking doesn't bother me. But I really appreciate everyone coming out. As soon as they get mic'd, I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves, and we'll get started on the dialogue. I think every year thus far, and this is our 4th year having this, it seems like there's a variation of the common theme of equality and gender equity. Last year was Balance for Better and about gender balance, and this year being Each for Equal, and they keep, coming up with different phrases, but what that says to me is that this is an ongoing need for the dialogue around this issue. And so I'm excited about the talk that we'll have tonight. I think that, the majority of women that we serve, and we see around 1,000 women a year, 80% of them, of course, being successful, meaning that when they come in for the job interview, 80% of them actually get the job that they were going for after having come to us. So it's a huge impact, because when we change the life of a woman and empower her economically, it's not just her, but the people that rely on her. You change the trajectory of her entire household. And so when we're talking about economically empowering women, it's only inherent that we have this conversation about gender equity, pay equity, the differences, the similarities, the journey that we're coming along. So I think, is everybody ready now? Awesome. Well, I'm going to take this moment for everyone to introduce themselves, because I could read your bios, but it's boring if I do that. And so I think it's more engaging for you to tell people about yourselves. We'll start over here on our far left, and tell us your name, your background, and whatever else you want to share.
Sure. Pretty good. I, hand on heart, do the most boring job in this room. I already know that from speaking to some of you. So I've worked in the city for 19 years. 17 of that I spent in an investment bank. The last 2.5 years I've worked for an insurance company, the one with the umbrella, Legal & General, which is an absolute revelation, which I'll tell you a little bit about maybe later. But yeah, I started out as wanting to be a green environmentalist and change the world, and I even did a PhD in greenhouse warming, and then 20 years in the city, and now thankfully the world is waking up to greenhouse warming, so is our CEO of my company, so it's kind of where I am right now. I run a pricing team at Legal & General. We price pensions transactions, which is why I said my job is probably boring compared to yours.
Okay, so I'm Jenny Winch, and I have been working at Xerox for the last nearly 15 years. I run a team of commercial contracting experts. They negotiate contracts for the whole of the UK organisation, sales contracts, only slightly less boring than your own. But actually, no, it's pretty neat. We work along with sales a lot. I've worked in lots of different places. I did a stint in investment banking. I did GE, done IBM, done Sony, done quite a lot of the big organisations. Also worked for charities, also worked for SMB organisations as well. So I've had a real sort of portfolio of experience, and I'm very happy to be here this evening.
Hi everyone, I'm Yetunde Hoffman. I actually also worked in investment banking as a secretary. So I worked as a PA when I was trying to find a job, and you had all these people that I was supporting, somebody who managed the dealers on the dealing floor. So, and then I decided investment banking wasn't for me. So I just love nothing more than helping people and organizations get the very best out of who they are, because when you do that and you operate at your very best, then the results that you can create are extraordinary. And I discovered this a few years ago when I decided to take a step out of the corporate world. I was a global head of HR, driving growth for a 30 billion market cap organization, a FTSE 25, driving growth across 165 countries. And I was losing my soul, not seeing my family, living in Weybridge, working in Bristol and traveling the world. And you think, well, what's this got to be? So I left without anywhere to go to, took a year out, breathed for a while, and decided to go portfolio, spending my time doing what I love best. So I'm working on a variety of boards where I'm a non-executive director on a PLC, not-for-profit, a global education charity. Absolutely love that. I run my own leadership and change consulting practice where we help leaders to be effective, leadership teams to be less dysfunctional. And we also run group-wide leadership programs. And then we run a community interest company called the Enjoyable Life Series, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. And the reason why I run this is so that we can enable people to live their lives more enjoyably. And through this, we raise money for awesome organizations like Dress for Success. I also play the piano, I'm an author, and I love to sing badly.
There you go. Well, fantastic. Well, this is going to be an interactive conversation. So at any point in time, you have questions, you have comment, you want to join in, we do have a microphone up here that we can pass around. And I'm going to start going down the line and asking questions. But if you want to join in on someone else's question, don't feel there are no rules. All right, there are no wrong answers or questions, but this is just a dialogue about the topic, and I'm excited. So I'm going to start with you, Tunde, and ask, you're a non-executive director at Treat, which has operations in 4 major continents. What insight has this position given you into the corporate forecast for women globally?
Well, Treat operates across all the world, and we serve global customers. And what is clear is that the power of women is what really makes organizations be successful. I mean, research and statistics will tell you that organizations that have more women in their businesses deliver more results. And so the insights that it gives me is the importance of the kind of skills and capabilities that are typically meant to be great in women. So skills around empathy, effective listening, judgment, wisdom. These are the capabilities that are required for organizations today. This is where AI and technology, there's so much change. And in the company, even though on a board, you're not an executive, but you can ask questions. So we ask questions around how they are attracting women into their organization. We ask questions around gender pay equality, the gap between what the CEO is paying and what the lowest person on the earliest level of the rung of the ladder is earning. Because in my view personally, whether you run a nation or you're sleeping on the streets, you all are leaders, and the only thing that separates us might be blocks. So the insights this gives us is that no matter where you are in the world, there needs to be an attraction for women. The capabilities that women can bring to the workforce are significant. And when you're going through change, which my company Treat is going through a lot of change, we're looking at a refresh of the strategy. If you're going to go through change where people are naturally more reluctant to change, the skills that women have really come to the fore. And where there's problems is when those skills are not coming in. Now, I'm not saying that men don't have the skills too. I'm not saying that. But those skills that are typically in women is what is needed more and more.
That's fantastic. Fascinating. So, Jenny, from your extensive and varied experiences across so many areas and levels in business and corporations, what are your views on the current landscape of gender equality? Do you have suggestions on what efforts should be made to push this agenda?
Yes, well, I actually did a little bit of research actually, and there's a World Economic Forum which kind of said that the over sort of a number of kind of areas in terms of economic participation and opportunity, health, and education, we came out 19th, the UK came out 19th, down from 16th. If you actually looked at the economic participation and the opportunity part, we were 58th as the UK. So that in itself is a little bit depressing, to be fair. But I think that that is probably due to the fact that there's so few women in management and leadership positions. The wage stagnation, and the levels of income. That's one of those things that are driving that. And I think I look at my own organisation, I look at Xerox, and actually I kind of say, yeah, I can kind of see how that works, how that happens. But I think that one of the things that I think that we really need to do is not just about addressing equality in the workplace. I think it's something that needs to be addressed all the way through our education system. It's making sure that children don't have those prejudices and stereotypes, ideas right from the start, and that we make sure that we change that approach. And I have to say, I have a son who's a millennial, and he and my nephews. I have to say, I'm quite heartened because actually they see gender equality is absolutely rational and nothing unusual about it, you know. So I actually think that's actually quite heartening. And I think that we probably need to step it up probably more as society to do something in terms of childcare and helping women to get into the workplace and retaining them. And maybe we just have to wait a little bit of time for some of the senior executives to shuffle off into retirement to maybe change some of the perceptions as well. But I actually think that the new generations are actually probably going to be the ones that are going to really help us to make the progress that we need to do.
Probably, yeah. Well,
Can I just add to that?
Yes,
Do you know,
absolutely.
I have a team of 70 people, and I have more men, young dads, doing part-time than women doing part-time.
Wow.
And it is unprecedented for me, and it's absolutely a revelation. It's so different, and it actually changes minds and hearts. And my millennial as well, he's got a completely different attitude too. For him, it's unnatural.
Exactly.
If it's all one, you know, either gender, it's completely unnatural. And he feels kind of, this is weird.
Yes.
But the world has changed a lot for like a corporate team to have more men doing part-time. And they have said, the two who do it, they actually both said, I have a little baby, why should she get to grow him up all by herself? You know, I'd like to spend time with that kid. It's big change and positive change.
And do you see that primarily in the millennial demographic?
Well, that demographic that I'm talking about, the chaps who have decided, they're like in their 40s, so they're not at the younger end. But I tell you what else made a big difference. It was a competitor of ours. I'll tell you, it was Aviva put out there that they were going to give men the choice of having 6 months paternity instead of women. And that was huge. And I have friends in the industry who went and got a job there, male friends, because they want to have child number 2 and they want 6 months off. So that was a game changer and absolutely the right thing to do. And you think, how did it take so long for that to happen? It's crazy.
And that's funny because my question for you was, have you noticed a shift towards more gender equity environment? And apparently so.
But it takes leadership from the top. When the top changes, I was telling you Tinder earlier that our CEO has 5 daughters. That makes a difference. That changes your mind when you think, God, how are my children going to be treated? And he went for it. He went for it 5 years ago. He said, we'll be 50-50 by 2020. Okay, we haven't done that by 2020, but just the fact that he put it out there, you know, your standard FTSE 100 CEO said, we're going to do this. People's mindsets start changing, and it's got to be right from the top. And that is trickling through. So yeah, lots of change, good change.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. I think I definitely can see. I didn't know when we first had this talk and these panels, I learned that 40-year-olds, somewhere in between, we're millennials. And so we're not quite Gen X, but we're not quite millennials. And I didn't even know that existed. I didn't know I was a millennial. I'm like, there's no way I'm anywhere near them, you know, millennial and all. But I do see that there is a difference. And maybe you're right, waiting for generations to trickle off nicely, not, you know, catastrophically or anything, would be the shift that is needed. Yatunda, you have extensive global experience leading, educating, and collaborating with other leaders. Do you believe that gender equality is a trickle down effect of progressive leadership, sort of along the lines of what we're saying?
I think great leadership actually is leadership that looks beyond the label of millennials, zillennial. I've met people in their 80s with as much energy as somebody in their 20s. And I've met people in their 20s who you're thinking, well, are you about to get your python slippers? and so it's progressive, it's just great leadership. And I've come across inspirational leaders and great leaders of all genres, of all ages. And a great leader is one that allows and creates an environment for their people to be all of who they are, and creates that space for those if a woman or a man or anybody feels they can't speak up, that they can speak up. Now, you could say that is it trickle down the gender equality? Well, I think when you look at the way the world is going, we talked about the skills set that's needed for today and tomorrow. When you look at the encouragement by the United Nations through the Sustainable Development Goals, where they said by 2030 there would be an eradication of gender inequality. Now, that's quite something. So that's pushing, and that's trickling down to governments. And it's very fashionable as well now for organizations and companies to say we want 50-50 in our executive, 50-50 on boards. I still don't see it. So is it a trickle down? It's a requirement of the times. And for organizations to survive, to become more competitive, you've got to be as diverse as possible. You've got to be creative, not just in the way that your people look, the gender, but in the way that people think, the different professions, the races, etc. So it's much more than that. So it's more a sign of what's required today to survive and to get ahead.
Indeed. Jenny, and along the area of challenges and areas that need to be improved, how powerful is a woman's confidence, and what is an area where you have observed women who lack confidence the most?
I think confidence is hugely important. It's hugely powerful, and I think it's also linked to authenticity. I think if you are happy with yourself, you're able to present your authentic self to the world. And where I've seen struggle most is where women are trying to be something that maybe they're not. They feel that they have to be maybe more masculine, they have to be more aggressive, they have to do something because that's what's going to get them noticed, that's what's going to get them taken more seriously, that's what's going to get them that next promotion. And actually, unfortunately, sometimes it does get them that next promotion if that's what somebody's looking for, but I really don't think that's what women need to do. We can just be ourselves and we can do what we want to do. And so I think that, it's really, really important to have that self-confidence, but I know sometimes it's something that people struggle with, and I've seen it. I've got somebody in my team who's come back from maternity. She was a very, very strong lady. Coming back after a year out, you can see the difference, and I know that we're going to have to work and we're going to try and get that confidence back up, but she's in a different place and it takes time, but it's something that absolutely is absolutely crucial.
Yeah. I want to say pretty so much. Pretty, I know. Comparing the efforts and implementation of gender equality in the workplace in the beginning of your career to now, how significant has the change been? And I think that sort of dovetails into what you were talking about earlier.
I think that you sort of, and I think different industries have moved at different pace. So in the previous bank I worked in, which you can look up, I ran the gender network, okay? And it's so clear to me that the only reason there was a gender network in that place was so they could put it on their webpage. We have a gender network, look at us. There was no interest whatsoever. In 2017, I was still going into meetings with 50 white guys on a Monday morning. 50. And most of it 2 girls in that room. But there was a great gender network with lots of publicity around it. Then I come to the place I work now. There's hardly any gender network. Like, there's the odd pocket. I have a little inclusion diversity group, and everybody's welcome and they can come and we'll do stuff. We'll talk about what's in the press. It's not formal. The environment is completely different because the messaging is from the leadership, and it's it feels more real. It feels actually genuine as opposed to fake. So you can have institutions that look like they're amazing, but they really don't care. Whereas one thing I've noticed that has developed is the returners, the maternity returners are making, there's a special expression for them, I've forgotten it. But basically a special effort for women who've had children to bring them back and to make an active choice about finding roles for them to come back into. And that's been huge forward step, I think, that's been a big change as well. And now one institution has done it, now lots of banks are doing it, but it is industry by industry, it can be so different. I genuinely think banks do lip service to diversity of any kind, diversity of thought, but there's some places are cutting ahead.
I just have to say, my son worked for a large car manufacturer in marketing, and he said, oh, they had a women's network there, Mum. And I actually went along and said, can I join your meeting? They kind of went, they were horrified that a man had said they wanted to come into their meeting, and so then they realised, well, they can't say no because that looks like
Right.
So he went in and he said, but it was like a self-help therapy session. He said there was nothing happening. There was no action. There was no actual point to it. He said it was just the weirdest thing. But they could actually but they could put it on their website that they had this
Deutsche Bank running the gender network was so depressing because every woman on every trading floor used to come and ask me for help, and so I used to collect tragedy tales from the trading floors, and it was really quite depressing and sad, very sad. And then the place I work now, I'm empowered to pull people up and do the right thing, but you have to have support to do the right thing. That's what it's about. And your manager and your manager's manager and the guy at the top, they have to have that open mentality. The knowledge, which you just referred to your tender, which is diverse teams make great businesses at the end of the day. That's it.
Absolutely. We're going to switch now to we've got okay.
Self-help.
And it's interesting because I in different companies have been in women's groups, and then when you said that, I was like, it was more therapeutic than it was actually action oriented, and maybe there's some validity in that, and maybe that's helpful in some regards, but it was more like a big hi, my name's Juanita. Hi, Juanita. Kind of session. But we're switching a little bit to advice. So Jenny, what advice can you offer women to communicate effectively in the workplace at all levels? What are some of the things to be mindful of?
Communication. So for me, communication is the thing that I like to pride myself on, and I really think emotional intelligence is really, really important for that. It's being self-aware, being aware, socially aware, and really being able to want to build relationship with other people. For me, being in an office and you're having a colleague on the same floor or upstairs, I get up and I go and speak to them. And maybe that's an age thing. I'm not quite sure, but I like to look somebody in the eye and build that rapport with people. And it's interesting because one of the things, and I'll go back to my millennial in my team, who, if you say to her, would you go and speak to that person, she's absolutely horrified. It's just like, no, I'm going to send them an IM or I'm going to send them a text. And they just absolutely won't do it. And again, I saw a report that said that they looked at what is the soft skill that most people would like to develop, and for the millennials and Generation Z, it was communication, because I think they are so embedded with their technology that they actually find it really, really hard to do that communication. But going and speaking to people, understanding their own kind of thinking styles, whether they're a fact person, whether they're a numbers person, whether they're a people person, how you interact with them. If you know how they like to speak and you mirror that can really help the communication. Obviously, body language helps, but listening is an underrated skill, but frankly is obviously one of the most important things for communication, and it helps you navigate your way through an organisation.
So can I just ask then?
Yes.
So why is that not?
Wait for the video. Let me give you the mic.
Oh,
Is that okay? Yeah.
So can I just ask, because you talked about emotional intelligence and being self-aware, and I'm very much into emotional intelligence. I'm trained in it in the US and bringing it back to the UK. So I'm quite interested in one, One about your gender networks and the therapy sessions, which is a complete waste of time and energy. Why do they not have a criteria of what the gender network is about and some of the objectives, and they are accountable to whoever it is that sets up the gender network within your workplace? But two, with the young people coming in, I talk about this all the time about the transitional from coming out of either university or school to go into the workplace.
Absolutely.
And the communication styles. And promote dress for success here, because that's one of the things that we want to look at in the future, is how do we address communication skills and the gap in the market around effective communications, both verbal and non-verbal. So why is it that in companies as big as the companies that you're involved in, why do they not have a communication sort of based training session or around their confidence, around their communication, when they come actually into the organisation?
I couldn't agree more. I think that basically, I would say, and on an economics front, one of the first things that people get rid of when things get tight is learning and development, right?
Yeah.
So that's, when I first joined this organisation, we were trained into the ground in terms of presentation and communication and all that stuff. That's the first thing that kind of goes in at this time, and it's the most crucial thing that's needed.
Exactly.
And it's interesting because I think that the kids that come out of university and who have got really good communication skills, they're the ones that are going to fly, because I really find it really unbelievable that it's like that. And I think, even I say my son is kind of going towards the end of his 20s, and there's a big difference between early 20s and late 20s. He was probably on the cusp of when the technology was coming out, so he and his friends have got excellent communication skills. They're really impassioned and they really, really do speak well. But then you go just 5-6 years younger, and there is a real need for it. And I think it's something that I think needs to be addressed at school and at university as part of the career. It's all very well for them to go into a career. I have, and I'll give an example again. My person in my team who wants to he's actually doing extra classes at university now to be a lawyer. She is academically superb. She is flying through her exams. She can't look anybody in the eye and speak to them. And at the end of the day, how do you go out there and get clients if you can't do that?
I mean, one of my and our ambitions, because Juanita and I talk about this all the time, and I'm very much passionate. I've got 3 generations of kids, 30s, 20s and teenage. So I see the difference between the 30-year-old right down to the teenage age. And I'm with you that it should start in schools around how you be self-aware, how you respect others, how you have empathy, compassion, etc., and create good communication skills within the schools.
Absolutely.
Because then you teach the next generation of leaders how to be effective communicators. I think within the workplace now, how do you solve that problem then? Of the workplace now?
For me, I think it's being left to individual managers to do that work. So I'm passionate about it, so I am doing something. So I've done 360s, I do stuff, and I'm setting activities to help her. When we have our team meetings, she's getting up, she's standing up, she's presenting to our team, she, in a safe environment, she's doing those things. So I'm promoting it, but you're at the mercy of your individual manager, and not everybody finds that a number one priority for them because they're too busy back in the work.
And it's bizarre because you said if the first thing that goes, they cut the learning and development, which really is the most crucial, because if you create a safe environment for employees to thrive, then you're more likely to have less high turnover of staff, more productive staff, etc.
Couldn't agree.
Thank you.
I think the key thing really is about leadership. You just talked about it. It really depends on the leader or the manager the employee has, because I actually think it's very individual. Because I've got 2 boys in the early 20s. One's just turned 21, and the other one is 22. They're fantastic at communication, and the younger one very rarely uses his phone, and his friends are the same. And then, so the community, he relates. He does a lot of research, and they're young. This is why I don't think that we can say they're all the same. I really believe that for young people, or anybody anyway who's working, the biggest thing that you can equip them with is self-awareness, and how they impact. Because on the one hand, he's a very good communicator. On the other hand, there's some other things I could say that I think would be better at, So there is something about self-awareness, and it's important at all levels. And just to be a little bit glib, somebody said to me once in business, well, Yetunde, I've been criticized, by the executive team that I could be better at strategy, and I could be more strategic in my thinking. And what I said to her was, well, anytime you're in a meeting, make sure you say the word strategy, strategic thinking, like strategic. I kid you not, you try it. They'll start to say, oh, wow, what a strategic thinker that person. Because I tell you, it's just about mimicking. You know, we like to flock towards people who sound like us or what we want to hear. So it might be glib, but I tell you, it does work. You try it. Yeah. But the key thing for me is self-awareness and, of course, all this training. And one more thing, you must, if you're not in HR, you must encourage your HR department. So when the things at times are tough, that they hold onto the budgets that actually help you make a difference later on. The aspects of your leadership development, your training, and your communication skills, rather than cutting.
Fantastic. So, Pretty, I'm going to come to you. Oh, what's somebody? Oh, I thought someone had a question. Sorry.
She's just relating very well.
All right.
I think we all are. But Pretty, this year we're encouraging, as I mentioned earlier, the gender equality with the campaign Each for Equal. So starting with us as women, how can we fight bias, improve situations, and broaden perspectives for this cause, in your opinion?
This was your toughest question.
I know.
We have to make a big effort. And maybe I heard it earlier in the room that you don't have to run a team to be a leader. You've got to set by example wherever you work. So that's really important. And just the whole speaking up. I know we should be ourselves, but we do have to raise our voices a little bit. I mean, I just noticed the guys in my team are louder than the girls. Not all of them. But then, you know, recently somebody in one of the teams got promoted, and one of the girls in the team said, "Can't be that the loudest person gets promoted." And I said, number one, I don't think it was the loudest person, but number two, why don't you just raise your voice? None of us even knew you were interested in the role. So how on earth, if you don't make it known, and that doesn't mean you have to go up to somebody's face and say, "Oh, really? That's my job." Like, build your network. Make sure your strategic people know that you're interested. You have to really actually work at the non-cerebral stuff as well, which does make a difference to your career. So I do think, and it's my responsibility and the responsibility of leaders to actually spend a bit of time with people who you work with and in your team, and that makes a huge difference. Even if you're in a small little team, just making your thoughts gently known. A conversation leads to a conversation leads to a conversation, and suddenly somebody who needs to know knows you're interested in doing that other job. And so I do think it's on us as well to just spend 20 minutes having a coffee with people you wouldn't necessarily have a coffee with. That's good for both parties most of the time, by the way. So I do think we have to lift our heads from day job and take a bit of time. It's not a very structured answer, I'm sorry.
But it's a good one. I think it's very relevant. I'm going to move to Utundi and talk about the fact with your established community, the Enjoyable Life series we were talking about earlier. You work to identify practical ways in which that you can live more joyfully, thereby helping to support well-being, diversity, and inclusion. Can you share the effects that diversity and inclusion have on a more enjoyable life experience, and why you dedicated yourself to this cause?
Thank you. Well, I've worked in the world of diversity and inclusion for a long time, and years ago when it was called Equal Opportunities, to give you my age now, you know, everything that we talk about today, I was addressing then. And then lately I started to learn about expressions like intersectionality. And I worked out, what does that mean? That means that, you know, you might be black and female and gay and Christian and disabled. Then the question is, where do you fit? And also, in my working life, I've come across men who've also found it very difficult to speak up, regardless of where they are. And it began to So I don't want to rule out the value and of having women's networks, even if it's therapeutic, because we need therapy. You know, or having networks for different people, whether it's LGBT or so on. I'm not ruling that out. But what I began to experience, and that's because I've gone through a lot of hardship myself, a lot of change. I've experienced bullying, I've experienced race discrimination, gender discrimination. And I've also found I've paid the price for not speaking up at times. And what I began to experience that actually, if you had your own unique sense of purpose, and you combined that with an unconditional acceptance of all of who you are, then you have joy, and that joy is what helps you be resilient. It's what helps you live your life, cope with the ups and downs of life more effectively. So if organizations, for example, provide the tools through various networks and policies, and governments also bring this, and they bring edicts and policies, how do we equip individuals with the tools themselves, the other half of the equation? So those practical tips on how to be resilient, how you deal with change, to deal with your mindset, your attitude. And that's where the Enjoyable Life series comes in, to say that if we can equip ourselves as individuals with those practical leadership, life leadership skills, then combined with what happens on the outside from organizations and whatever, then the two can be very powerful. Because each individual is inherently individual, and you cannot put us in a box. But you can, through relating and giving and tools and the way, develop the ability to stand more firm, and we can all become more religious. So that's why I do the job.